Someone messed with this machine along with the heart monitor and must have tampered with the machine that notifies us when a patient awakes, the head surgeon replied coldly. That's the only explanation I can ever think of. As soon as we're done here, I want security notified ASAP. We've got a sabotager in this hospital. We can't just continue the surgery while the kids is still awake though, one of the surgeons operating Timmy pointed out. We won't be able to put him back to sleep, but we can't stop the pain, the head surgeon said. Get the strongest painkiller over there, hook it up to the IV right away. The nurse quickly fetched an IV bag containing the extremely powerful painkiller that would completely numb the receptors in Timmy's brain, effectively eliminating the pain that he was currently feeling. Afterwards, the nurse hooked up to the bag to one of the IV needles, leading into Timmy's right arm, and then switched on the flow valve to cause the bag medication to start flowing into Timmy's veins. The head surgeon had to remove the mask and look down at Timmy with a saddened look. Don't you worry, kiddo. This painkiller we're pumping into your system will get rid of the pain all in you in no time. You'll be awake for the rest of the procedure, but you won't feel anything after this, the surgeon assured him. And don't worry, we're going to find out who's behind all of this as soon as we're done here. I could soon promise you that. It was Vicky? Vicky did this, Timmy wanted to say, but he was still immobilized and wouldn't be able to move. At this point, thought went over Timmy's mind. He suddenly felt the horrible, agonizing pain beginning to fade away slowly. He had realized that the painkillers must have started to take effect, and immediately felt the greatest feeling of relief he had ever felt in his life rushed through him as the pain, unimaginable agony, slowly faded. Eventually, Timmy could do is no longer feel after a while, and this finally put him at ease. However, although no longer be able to feel any more pain, his psychological damage done to Timmy's mind from the whole horrifying experience had been done. He was far more traumatized and broken than he had ever been in his life. Never in all of Timmy's life he had experienced in such agony and pain. All those beatings and trashings Timmy had gotten at the bullies at school and Vicky were the most pain and unpleasant. But that was nothing compared to what he had just gone through. He had just not only witnessed his own body being sliced open in scalpels and buzzsaws, including with his appendix being removed, but he had also felt this as well. The pain Timmy felt, and it was all so horrible that it couldn't even be put into words. It should have been in a normal surgery. It had turned into one horrible nightmare anyone could even imagine. But Timmy knew it wasn't the surgeon's fault. It had been Vicky who had done all this, and he was pretty sure that his parents wouldn't believe him if he told them. Timmy's parents never believed him whenever he told them that Vicky had been hurting him, but they even scolded him for being a liar. Just thinking that about Vicky moment filled Timmy's with nothing more but pure rage and hatred with the most evil, sadistic teen. His eyes scrunched up in anger as he looked over at the window, only to see Vicky was gone. I will kill you, Vicky! I will kill you for this! Timmy thundered in his mind. He knew for the fact that he couldn't wish death on another person, but he'd find a way. As much as the idea of killing a human being was, Timmy didn't care. He had enough of Vicky for far too long that she had tormented, bullied, and hurt him, along with her own family and other kids as well. And what Vicky just had to done to Timmy had been the breaking point. He didn't care if he ended up going to prison for murder. He just wanted to see Vicky dead. Timmy didn't even know how he'd do it, but he vowed to find a way. At that moment, Cosmo flew back to the security surgery room in a housefly form again and rejoined Wanda on the shelf. Is Timmy alright? I heard the alarm going off in here, Cosmo asked. Yes, I was actually the one who set off the alarm too, so the doctors would notice Timmy was awake and in pain. They have given him some painkillers so he won't feel any more pain, Wanda explained. I also heard the doctor saying that the hospital machinery was sabotaged, and I think that's why Timmy's awake. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I know who did it, Cosmo said, glaring briefly at the surgery room window. Let me guess. It was Vicky? Wanda asked. Yes, it was, Cosmo nodded in disgust. And I even recorded proof of it outside the hospital room like you told me to. I flew up to the ceiling and transformed myself into a security camera, then recorded Vicky gloating to herself about how easy it was to pull off of what she did. I also connected myself directly to the security camera system. The hospital staff is sure gonna know who it was. At the moment that they checked the security camera footage, Wanda felt a rush of anger upon hearing the news. That monster! How could she do such a thing? Couldn't she just see how much pain he was in? Wanda hissed angrily. No, Vicky didn't even know Timmy was feeling the pain, Cosmo replied, shaking his head. I heard her say to herself that she was pretty sure that Timmy would be awake and feeling no pain, but I think Vicky planned her prank directly. No surprise. That girl is a complete idiot, and it's no wonder why something like this happened. It doesn't matter that what was disgusting teen thought that this was in fact that Timmy was awake in pain, Wanda replied, glancing down at Timmy with a sudden urge to sob. Oh my god, I can't even imagine how much pain he must have been, just laying here, unable to move while the surgeons operate him, unaware that he's no longer asleep. Neither can I, but like I said, the hospital security team will eventually find out about it shortly after they see the security camera recording I made. Once that happens, Vicky will get busted by the cops for sure, Cosmo said. Good, she deserved it. Wanda replied. That monster has already gotten away with hurting Timmy so much, and even his own parents wouldn't believe him whenever they try to tell them about it. Now she's finally gonna get what she deserves after all this time. Yes, once Timmy's parents find out that Vicky was to blame for sabotaging his surgery, she'll be facing a ton of lawsuits in addition to prison time, Cosmo said as he watched the surgeons fully stitch up Timmy's surgical wound. Timmy had stopped crying and was just laying on the surgery table in a tranquil manner. He no longer felt any pain due to the painkillers being injected into his system. But even Cosmo and Wanda could tell that he was traumatized from everything that happened. Vicky had truly shown just how evil she truly was by doing what she has done. They knew that Timmy was going to need far more than just comforting once all this was over. He'll most likely end up in therapy for years, just to try and get this hospital and nightmare done and over with. After the doctors stitched up Timmy's wound, they began cleaning the excess blood off of his body before buttoning up his hospital gown back up. We're done. His appendix is out and is all stitched up, one of the nurses reported. Yes. Alright, let's move him to the recovery room, the head surgeon said. Once Timmy's there, I want security informed of what happened here, and I'm going to need to break the news to the parents about, well, you know. Oh boy, they're not going to be happy once they heard the news their son woke up from the surgery and ended up feeling everything done to him. The other doctors and nurses agreed. They began to clean everything up. After a few minutes, another nurse wheeled in the hospital bed to the surgery room, then gently lifted Timmy off of the surgery table and onto the bed. Once Timmy was on the bed, Cosmo and Wanda flew underneath it and grabbed onto the other side of the underside of the mattresses, and as the doctors began wheeling the bed off of the surgery room. After about a minute, they reached the recovery room, where Timmy's parents were waiting for him. They had noticed that he was awake, and they eagerly approached the hospital bed. Hey kiddo, you're awake already. How you doing? Mr. Turner asked eagerly. For some reason though, Timmy hadn't responded. In fact, he didn't move at all. The paralytic drugs in Timmy's system hadn't fully worn off yet, so he's unable to move or speak. Miss Turner seemed to have noticed this as well, and grew visibly worried when she noticed that it appeared to be the remains of dried bloody streaks near his eyes. Most of the bloody tears Timmy had shed earlier had been wiped out by the surgeons, but there was still a few streaks of blood remaining, and Timmy's parents quickly noticed this. Timmy, are you alright? Miss Turner asked worriedly, growing concerned when she saw his eyes move back and forth between her and his father. Doc, what's wrong with Timmy? Why isn't he moving or speaking? Miss Turner asked, now visibly worried. The doctors and nurses quickly looked at each other with concerned expressions before the head surgeon finally spoke up. Mr. and Mrs. Turner, we have some very disturbing news, the surgeon began. What? Did his surgery go wrong? Mr. Turner asked, almost in a panic. No, we got his appendix out, but something, unexpected happened, the surgeon replied. What happened? Timmy's mother asked, glancing back down at Timmy, who actually began twitching his fingers a little. Timmy could feel the paralytic drugs beginning to wear off. He could only move his fingers again, a bit slowly and weakly. He felt no pain, however, since the painkillers were still being pumped into their system, through the IV drip attached to the hospital bed. This ensured that he felt no pain from his surgery. Well, before I tell you this, I need to warn you that what I'm about to say will shock you. But I promise you that we've been doing everything in our power to find out who's behind it, the surgeon stated. Behind what? Who's behind what? You're not making any sense, Miss Turner replied in confusion. The surgeon sighed and began explaining. Well, before the surgery started, we put Timmy to bed and sleep by using the anesthesia gas after we hooked him up after all the machines. Afterwards, we began to operate on him without trouble. But then we didn't know was that, well, you see your son, the surgeon paused, not sure how to say it. Will you just spit it out already? Mr. Turner snapped impatiently. The surgeon simply nodded and continued. Your son was awake the whole time, and we didn't even know it until the master alarm in the surgery room went off. I sent one of the nurses to shut it off, and that's when he looked down and saw Timmy's eyes open, crying blood and moving around wildly. The surgeon explained in the grim tone of voice. We didn't know how long he was awake, and we probably won't know until Timmy's able to speak again. All we know is that he woke up and ended up feeling everything that had been done to him. We tried to knock him out with the gas again, but then we noticed the anesthesia gas machine had been tampered with, and as it turns out, both tanks were empty, so we couldn't put him back to sleep again. Instead, we had to use some very powerful painkillers to substitute in order to end all the agonizing pain he was in. We already were pretty much done with the surgery when we noticed Timmy awake for the first time. So it didn't awake for that long to finish after giving him the painkillers. This was the reason he's awake now, but Timmy won't be able to move or speak until the paralytic drugs completely wear off. He may not be able to move for a bit, but Timmy will still be mostly immobilized as a result. Mr. and Mrs. Turner both looked down at Timmy with looks of horror and dread, taking everything that the surgeon had just explained to them. They didn't want to believe it, but upon looking at Timmy's eyes and actually noticing his expression to turn on the complete sadness, they both knew it was no lie. No, Doc, please tell me this isn't true. Please tell me this isn't true, Miss Turner stammered, her face slowly turning pale. Wait, you mean to tell me that my son woke up in the middle of the surgery and felt everything that you were doing to him? How in God's name could this happen? Do you have any idea how serious this is? Mr. Turner snapped angrily. It wasn't our fault, or at least that's what we can only assume as of now, the surgeon replied calmly. We did a quick scan of your equipment, and once we found out Timmy was awake, and found in some very disturbing evidence. Some of our machines have been tampered with, which indicated the heart monitor, the anesthesia gas administering machine, and the machine that alerts us if a patient wakes up in the middle of the surgery. We don't know who's behind this, but I can promise you right now that the hospital security will be notified about this immediately. If necessary, we may end up getting the police involved in this. But I promise you both right now, we'll do everything in our power to find out about who did this to your son. You're damn right. You're gonna find out, Mr. Turner snapped. Because if you don't, I promise you right here and right now that I'll have this entire hospital shut down by the damn court system. I can't believe you didn't notice this. Did you even bother to check on the damn medical machinery twice before operating on my son? Did you? This could have been avoided if you had just used your freaking brains and checked the machines to see if they were working. And God forbid, you should have double-checked before you began slicing into him with your knives and whatever for shit you had used back in that room. Honey, please stop it. This isn't helping anyone, Mrs. Turner pleaded. I won't calm down, damn it, Mr. Turner yelled. turning to beet red in the face. Do you have any idea how serious this is? Can you even imagine how much pain Timmy must have been in? His poor mind will be scarred for life because of what happened. Mr. Turner, I kindly ask you to calm down and act more civilized, the surgeon demanded in a stern voice. I understand that you're angry and upset, but you have to understand that this wasn't our fault, and we honestly don't know who sabotaged the equipment. Also, we did in fact a double check around our equipment because it was tampered with, and none of us could have known that Timmy would have woke up. You also need to calm yourself down, because if you can't, I will have security remove you from the premises until you act a bit more civilized. Mr. Turner was about to rant further, but his wife grabbed his arm and urged him to stop. Please, honey, ranting and shouting isn't going to help anyone, Miss Turner pleaded, with tears running down her face. I am just as upset about this as you are, but nothing we can do. What has been done. All we have to do at the hospital is to investigate no matter what and find out who's behind this. Once they find out who did it, I promise you that we'll definitely press charges against them for doing this to our son. Miss Turner glanced at Timmy, who was now able to raise his hand a little, then back at the doctors and nurses. His eyes began brimming with tears as well, as he turned to Timmy. I'm so sorry, Timmy. I'm so sorry we couldn't be there with you. Mr. Turner couldn't even finish the sentence, the last line, because he broke down in tears afterwards. He sank to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably, and the thought of the unimaginable agony his son must have went through upon waking up during his surgery. Timmy's mother simply leaned down and embraced her son, sobbing into his shoulder. My baby, she sobbed. I'm very sorry this happened to you. I shouldn't have let you go. I wouldn't have known this would happen. I never would have let them wheel you in that surgery room. We could have waited another time. We could have had the surgery done somewhere else, but no. I'm so sorry, Timmy. One of the nurses pulled her away, telling her that they needed to move Timmy over near the wall. Timmy's mother embraced her husband as the nurses parked his hospital bed as the far corner of the room, locking the wheels in place. We'll need to keep Timmy here overnight to run some tests on him to ensure that he'll be in perfect health. We'll also have some of the doctors and nurses keep a constant eye on him due to the psychological damage that he undoubtedly received from waking up during the surgery, the head surgeon informed Timmy's parents. I'm not leaving his side, not after what happened to him, Mr. Turner replied firmly. Neither am I. We'll stay overnight with him, Mrs. Turner insisted. Sorry, but that's not permanent, the head surgeon said. Visiting hours are 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Overnight stays are not allowed. I understand your son possibly faced the most horrible experience of all of his life, but rules are rules. You can only stay with him until 9 p.m. Well, someone has to stay with him all night. There's no way in hell Timmy's going to be able to sleep very well after everything that's been going through, Mr. Turner snapped. He won't be alone, one of the nurses said. We'll keep a close eye on him throughout the night, and in case if he starts having night terrors, I promise you both that nothing bad will happen to him overnight. Timmy at this point was now able to move more freely, since the paralytical drugs in his system had been mostly worn off, and he had even attempted to speak. His lips felt very heavy at first, but then Timmy struggled hard and managed to finally spoke up. Mom? Dad? Timmy rasped in a weak voice, finally able to speak again. His parents and surgeons instantly turned around in the hospital bed upon hearing Timmy speak. He's talking again, Miss Turner gasped in relief, rushing over to the hospital bed. Oh, good. It looks like the paralytic drugs are finally wearing off, the head surgeon said quickly, walking over to the bed. Now we could finally get some answers. Timmy tried sitting up, but he felt too weak from the drug's effect. Even though some of the paralytic drugs had worn off, some of it still lingered in his system, making it hard for him to move around. The head surgeon and two other nurses stood next to the bed, helped Timmy to sit up in a comfortable position. Although he didn't feel any discomfort because of the painkillers flowing in his veins. Timmy, the head surgeon began, gazing into Timmy's eyes. with an expression mixed with guilt and sadness. I am so sorry. I didn't even know you were. It was her, Timmy suddenly said. An expression turned that one into pure rage. What? Who? What are you talking about, Timmy? Mr. Turner asked in confusion. Timmy clenched his fists, remembering Vicky's evil, sneering face as she watched him being operated from the surgery room, unaware of all the agony that he had been through, experiencing from it. The evil face had forever buried in Timmy's memory. It will always continue to linger in his mind, and long after his body returned to dust. The Vicky! It was Vicky! She did this to me, Timmy hissed, with his tone filled with malice and hatred. Vicky? Who the hell is Vicky? The head surgeon asked. She's my son's babysitter. A pretty good one at that, Miss Turner replied. Upon hearing that, Timmy's head angrily shot over to his mother, his blue eyes filled with anger. No, she isn't! Timmy suddenly yelled. She is the one who did this to me. I saw her through the surgery room window while I was being operated on, and she was grinning at me as if she was enjoying what was happening. It's all been her. Always. But you never believe me when I tell you Vicky's hurt me so many times in the past. The head surgeons and his nurses glanced at each other with concerned looks. Timmy's parents just looked as concerned, but also confused as well. Timmy, Vicky left the hospital right before you went to surgery. She couldn't have been in there. I seriously doubt that she'd be capable of doing such a thing, Miss Turner said in disbelief. Yes, she is, Timmy snapped. Vicky's always been hurting me, torturing me, and blaming me for stuff I didn't do, and you never believed me. Timmy, you know that isn't true. Vicky's never done that, Miss Turner scolded in a calm manner. She's never shown us any signs of cruel behavior towards you. It's because she knows how to deceive you, Timmy shot back. Vicky's been lying to you, deceiving you ever since you first started hiring her. And it's not just me. That monster hurts her own family as well. And you never believe me when I will tell you. You just passed me off as some damn liar and let that bitch go scot-free. Everyone in the room was just shocked hearing Timmy use such strong language. And even Cosmo and Wanda were still hiding under the hospital bed, gasped in shock. But given everything Timmy had just gone through, they couldn't exactly blame him. Timmy, you watch your language right now, Mr. Turner scolded, trying to remain calm. I understand what you just went through was beyond terrifying, but that doesn't give you the right to be blaming Vicky for things that she didn't do, and she doesn't give you the right to use foul language. You need to calm down. Calm down? Calm down? I have no intention of calming down, Timmy yelled back, tears of rage brimming in his eyes. You can't possibly understand what that monster did to me back there. I was in pain and agony beyond everyone's understanding, and that monstrous woman just stood there in the window, laughing and grinning at me like it was all some sick joke. And she's even whispered to me before I went into surgery that she was here to get back at me for something I didn't even do. Kid, you need to stop all the yelling. The other patients in the rooms are on the other side of the walls are asleep, and you might end up disturbing them, one of the nurses informed Timmy. Timmy, do you have any proof Vicky was there? Miss Turner asked. Did the doctor see anyone else outside the hospital window? Mr. Turner asked the surgeons. None of us looked up at the secure windows during the surgery. We were too focused on operating your son, so no, we didn't see anyone. The head surgeon replied, shaking his head. What about the security cameras? Were there security cameras in the area? Vicky might be caught on camera, Timmy said, still angrily. This hospital does have security cameras, but they weren't outside of any of the surgery rooms, a nurse replied. Timmy felt a rush of default feet running through upon hearing that. It was against Vicky, and without any psychological proof, no one would believe him. Like all the times in the past, Vicky would get away with what she did to Timmy, and all about but lost at this point. His parents never believed him in the past, when he tried exposing Vicky for the monster that she really was, but they always called him a liar and punished him for it. Now Vicky would once again get away with her crimes, only this would be the truly scarred Timmy's mind for life. You know what? We'll ask Vicky where she was at the same time of your surgery once she arrives. Miss Turner said. Hearing this caused a massive chill to rush down Timmy's spine. She's coming over here? Timmy questioned, a look of terror on his face. Yes. Vicky said that she wants to see you after your surgery to see how you're doing, Miss Turner said calmly. As if on cue, Timmy heard a voice that he never wanted to hear again. Hey there, where's the kid? A bratty female voice asked.